Hey, what's up, Raider Nation? Shantelle Chand here. And it was day one of the legal tampering period, and the Raiders made some crazy moves. We're going to get into all of that on today's episode.
There's no doubt about it. John Spytek went to work on Monday, made it rain in Las Vegas with a lot of different free agents. We'll talk all about them on today's Squad Show.
I'm Amber Theoharis. If defense wins championships, why not assemble the entire Georgia Bulldog defense? We're going to tell you how they came to the Raiders.
Raider Nation, it's time. This is the Raiders Squad. Everything Las Vegas Raiders every week. Covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from the Death Star in the desert. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Commitment to excellence starts here. The Raiders Squad Show starts now.
Hey, what's up, Raider Nation? Remember, if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. You can also follow us on our social media channels. You'll see on the screen in the description, if you're listening to this on the audio side, the ways that you can connect with us. We also want to thank you so much for helping the channel grow, for helping the show grow. If you're watching this on YouTube, we do appreciate you joining us in the mornings, leaving comments. And with that in mind, keep in mind in that final segment, Amber and Q are going to be taking some of your questions and comments. So if you're watching this on YouTube, drop them in the chat. If you're listening to this, you can always hit us up at a later time. We're also going to be getting into the direction the Raiders are taking as well, and all the moves that they made, what other positional needs they may need still. We hadn't had a chance to talk about Maxx Crosby. It's been a crazy 5-6 days. So we're going to break that down and how Maxx Crosby also helped the Raiders get 2 first-rounders and just his departure as well. But obviously, we have to start off with the biggest news, day one of legal tampering. Everything kind of gets official, I believe, Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern time. But when it came to the legal day of tampering, the Raiders did their thing. And I think we should break it down a little bit in terms of just giving all the names at once. And I think the first name that we should probably start off with is Tyler Linderbaum. Right, 3-year, $81 million. He was the big ticket free agent, and we all knew coming in that the Raiders needed to address the O-line. They definitely did it, and obviously they're looking forward ahead, and I think everyone's thinking Fernando Mendoza. They got their guy to protect him. They already have Kolton Miller. They say they're going to stick with JPJ, but they also said that they're going to stick with Maxx Crosby. So you never know what calls are going to come in for JPJ, but we'll start off with you first, Q. Just in terms of the Raiders landing the big ticket free agent, they get their guy on the O-line. Your thoughts? It's also a 3-year deal, which has been a theme with the guys that they brought in.
Yeah, it was a big deal. Obviously, that was the guy that everybody had talked about leading up to the start of the legal tampering period. Could they or could they not land Tyler Linderbaum? We knew that there was going to be a big market for him, including his own team, the Baltimore Ravens. We knew the Chargers were interested in him. I know that they went out and made some moves. So, okay, it looked like that he was off the board for them. But there was multiple teams that wanted him. And the Raiders money whipped him, right? John Spytek went above and beyond the Call of Duty and gave him a ton of money, right? I mean, Creed Humphrey was the highest paid center at the time, $19 million a year. Now it's going to be Tyler Linderbaum at 27. I mean, that's not just one up in you. That's blowing you out the water. So they were serious about getting their guy at the center position, which, going back to what you said about Fernando Mendoza, I keep going back and referencing what Daniel Jeremiah said on his pre-combine conference call, where he said, if you're going to bring in a young quarterback, you need the 3 Ps. You need a play caller, you need protection, and playmakers. Well, they have a play caller in Clint Kubiak. Now they're getting the protection. They're forming the protection, and they've got playmakers, and they're continuing to build that. So they're trending in the right direction to be able to embrace a young quarterback in Fernando Mendoza and to get the best center that was out there available. I think it was a home run on day one, and that wasn't where they stopped, but that was really the big get as far as I was concerned.
Yeah. And Amber, what about you? What were your thoughts on that?
I was surprised that the Ravens didn't want to keep it. I'm sure they maybe did want to, but the Raiders came in and blew them out of the water. So they weren't able to because and with the Maxx Crosby trade as well. I came up in the Ravens organization. I don't know how many Raiders fans know that, but I'm from Baltimore. I was there for 12 years. I came up with Eric DeCosta when he was a junior scout. I know how the man thinks. We're close. I'm close to his wife. I'm not surprised that he gave up 2 first-round picks for Maxx Crosby. He learned under Ozzie Newsome. He's one of the best GMs in the business. The one thing I thought that maybe they would do, though, was try to secure Tyler Linderbaum, but it seems like the Raiders came in and took him, and that's great for the Raiders. And I think everybody's talking about how much this sets the stage for Fernando Mendoza. Are we forgetting? It sets the stage for Ashton Jeanty. I mean, the reason that Kubiak wants to have a great center, the whole focus of his offense, You can't necessarily say it was Sam Darnold. It was Kenneth Walker.
Right.
He was the MVP of the Super Bowl. So while we're focusing on Mendoza so much, let's not forget this is an offense that is going to run the football, and it's going to be all about play action for Fernando Mendoza. So that's where I think the center comes into play. And Q, you and I have been so sick of going to training camps and looking at the new roster and the new starting five, and it's the same starting five kind of moved around.
Mm-hmm.
Now I think we're going to be in a completely different position where not you have a general. I mean, any team that has gone to the Super Bowl, whether it's a Jason Kelce, you have a Creed Humphrey, you have a center, a general there in the middle of the line. It is not the left tackle like everybody says. If you've been around football long enough, that you need a strong left tackle to protect the blind side, but it is the center that anchors the entire line. So now I think you're going to have JPJ finally be able to come into his own because that responsibility is not on him. I see him at right guard. And then with Colton Miller, and then you got pick number 14, and you have another pick in the top of the second round. You can fill out. I think if you get one more offensive lineman, who's the kid out of Penn State?
Venga Ioane. Let's go.
Yes.
We're on the same page. Let's go.
Too. I like that kid a lot.
Yes.
I think a lot of people are plugging him in there as it will be available at 14.
Yep.
That all of a sudden, just like that, Q, you and I and Shantelle, we're showing up at training camp and we're looking at that line and it looks a whole lot different. And that is if you're going to rebuild a team, that is the number one thing you need to look at is the offensive line. I think we're looking pretty good, especially if we can get a lineman in the top of the draft.
I'll tell you what, if they're able to land Ioane at number 14, if he happens to be available, and it's funny that, certain mock drafts that are out there like Jordan Reed from ESPN, he already had him mocked in at number 14, but to Baltimore. So you just switch out the team, right? And if he ends up there, that'd be great. That's all of a sudden an offensive line where they're kicking folks out the club. Right? That's the offensive line. You know what I mean? Seriously, like they are kicking you out the club. We've all been in the club before with security's like, hey, man, y'all ain't here in VIP. They give them the boot. That's the offensive line that's giving folks the boot out the club. I'm taking that every day of the week and twice on Sunday, and I'm so glad you brought up Ashton Jeanty. He is the big winner from the first day of the legal tampering period because, man, that dude almost went for 1,000 yards behind that offensive line where he was getting hit every time he touched the ball. If you can put together the bullies up front like we're all expecting them to, Ashton Jeanty's going to eat. And so, yeah, that he is a big winner from day one for sure.
And obviously, I think one of the biggest conversations was the money that Tyler Linderbaum got. But the Raiders had the money to spend. They had to spend at least 90% of the cap. It averages to about $27 million a year. Were both of you okay with the money that was given? And are you okay with that? Because the Raiders did have to spend, Amber?
Q, help me with the line here. What is the scared money don't make money?
Facts.
Right?
Yeah,
okay.
exactly.
You know, we look like the old heads. Let's go back to the old school here. They say scared money don't make money. Exactly. So, like, if you don't spend money, if you want to make money, if you want to improve in anything, you can't be cheap. Right? You gotta if you know that's your guy and you have the money, you know, don't go buying $1 million house when you got a $200,000 budget. They had $1 million budget.
Right.
So if you, and clearly they determined that was the number one position, day one, first move. That was priority number one. So you know exactly what their number one priority was. And that was a center. And so they were willing to spend a lot more than they probably, I don't want to say had to, because, you know, other people could have gotten Tyler Linderbaum. So they knew they had to come in high. So I don't have any problem whatsoever. I love the aggressiveness of John Spytek. He spent a lot of money day one, but he picked up a lot of draft picks. I love it. I'm totally fine with it.
Yeah, I have no problem with the money spent. Amber said it perfectly. They had the money, and it's not like they just went out there and recklessly spent it on anybody, right? They didn't go buy a dollar steak and spend, great steakhouse money on it. I mean, they literally went and got the best center and said, we're not going to be outbid. We're going to overpay him, and that's okay. That's what free agency is. He's a young dude. It's not like he's 30-something years old and he's trying to get one last payday. This is a guy that's 25 years old. That'll be 26 when the season starts, and you could play at that center position for quite a while. You could play along that offensive line for quite a while, and they give him a 3-year deal. Perfect, right? For the most part, if the way you break that contract down, it's really like an $81 million fully guaranteed. I know it's $60 million fully guaranteed, but if you look at the structure of it, it's basically like 3 years, $81 million. That's fine. I have no problem with it. If it's money well spent, nobody cares. right? Nobody's going to worry about how much the contract was if Ashton Genty goes for 1,300 yards and gets 15 touchdowns or whatever the case may be. And all of a sudden the quarterback is protected and Brock Bowers is eating because they have time to get on the ball. And, none of that. And Clint Kubiak's system is being put to work. Nobody's going to be looking back, well, you know what? Back in March, they spent $27 million. Who cares? The salary cap keeps going up, right? It went up $22 million this past year. So guess what it's going to do next year? I don't know, probably go up another 22 million. Like everybody's getting paid. So I'm fine with it. It ain't my money. Like Amber said, scare money don't make money. Let's get it.
Also, when you're building a roster, it's so great. This is why you need to build a team through the draft, right?
Yep.
And so that you can complement your roster with expensive free agents. They have all of their young players under first, second, third year contracts, whether it's Brock Bowers, Ashton Genty. Now they're going to have their quarterback on a rookie contract. All of their stars are on a rookie contract. And whoever comes in at 14 and whoever comes in at 36. So you have the luxury then, if you're smart with your draft picks, of being able to use free agent money and overpay as an exclamation point, right? It's like the ending to the sentence that you already wrote with your rookie contracts. So that they're in a great position to.
For sure.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. And I think the Raiders should spend money in the trenches. That's where they got to spend their bread. And so it's interesting because you talked about the rookie deals when you draft somebody, and these are 3-year terms that the Raiders and John Spytek are giving out. So let's get to the other guys that they brought in. Nakobe Dean on a 3-year, Paye on a 3-year, $48 million. Jalen Nailor, 3-year, $35 million. We'll get into that as well. They re-signed Eric Stokes, 3 years, $30 million. They brought in kicker Matt Gay, which I was a little bit surprised about.
I didn't like that move. I didn't like that move. I'll be honest. I didn't like that move. I know Daniel Carlson struggled last year. I thought he was good enough to bring back on a 1-year deal. I thought that they could have brought him back. He finished off the season really strong. He's been really good. Last year was kind of one of those one-offs. I think it was more about the process than it was the player. That's just me. Obviously, I'm not the evaluator. I'm not the guy in the building who matters. Gay has a relationship with Spytek going back to Tampa Bay, so you can connect the dots right there. I'm sure that he was probably cheaper. I didn't see what the actual contract would have been or is for Gay, but I was a little disappointed that they didn't bring Carlson back, but we'll see how it all plays out.
Yeah, and you know what? He didn't have the best season last year, so I think that kind of played a factor into it. But when it comes to stats, if you actually take a look at the stats, the last 3 years, Carlson has better numbers than Matt Gay, but he's got the ties with Spytek, obviously. They also acquired Taron Johnson from Buffalo. They're going to see how he does as well. He deals with a lot of injuries, so that'll be interesting to see if he can stay healthy. And they also brought back Malcolm Koonce on a 1-year deal, $11 million. That was a little bit surprising to me as well. I know he started to look better near the end of the season, but he also has the ties with Rob Leonard. He knows him really well. He was coming off a very serious injury. So this is year 2 off that serious injury. And, Amber, you just had surgery and you know how the process kind of goes in getting your body back to where you want it to be. What did you think about that Malcolm Koonce?
You mean Amber's not rushing the quarterback no time soon? What you talking about?
No, I'm not. Too many times I did that, I guess, back in the 90s. Wore this hip down, got myself a new one a week ago.
Oh, man.
Look, on that point, I do have to say, when you get a major surgery like this, I've had a couple of them being an athlete. It is amazing what these men do. It is amazing that these men pop an Achilles or have an ACL tear and come back and play at this elite level. So you got to give them credit. I mean, the grind, the heart, just the physical prowess that it takes to do it. So Malcolm Koonce, I think maybe Rob Leonard understood that. That a lot of times you come back from, remind me what the injury was again, Q, on Malcolm.
It was a torn ACL.
Yeah, right?
He tore it in preseason of 2024.
Everybody will tell you that comes back from an ACL that you are not right that first year. It takes you 2 years, everybody. So that is Rob Leonard knowing his guy and having faith in him, because we all did see the potential for Malcolm Koonce when he was fully healthy. And I think Rob Leonard wants to see that. I had a long conversation with Rob Leonard in the Raiders Cafe the other day. Love the guy. And one thing I noticed was he knew exactly what he wanted to do. Like when Spytek was like, do you want to be the defensive coordinator? He was like, yes, but it wasn't like, oh, thanks for giving me the job, whatever you want. It was, yes, but I need this. I need this. This is what I'm going to do. And I loved that. He told me how he came from so many, I mean, going back to the Ravens, you know, he was with Mike McDonald. Like he coached with a lot of these coaches. And he said how much he took from each place. And that's what he wanted to do because he knew what worked in each place. And then he kind of put together this plan of what he was going to do. So he knows exactly what he's going to do. So it wasn't like, oh, you know, I kind of like the guy. No, this was full evaluation. Does he fit exactly into exactly what I'm going to do? And can he add value? And he determined yes. And that's why I like the Malcolm Kuntz signing. As far as the Nakobe Dean and Kwity Paye and the linebacker and Quay Walker, like,
yes,
that's pretty awesome. I think that's pretty awesome because yes, you lose a Maxx Crosby who is a star player, but we all saw you cannot win with one star. It does not matter if you've got the best pass rusher in the game. You need a bunch of dudes. And I'd rather have a bunch of really good dudes than one star. And so I think that's what they got. And at the linebacker position, we have been in a famine. And any team that wins in the NFL has to have strong linebackers. But there's so much focus on the edge right now. And it's a 3-4 defense. I get it. The edge can swing back and forth to outside linebacker or be on the line. But you have to have linebackers. And I love that one of the first things they did was focus on the linebacker position, especially in a version of 3-4. We have to be careful. I talked to Rob. It's not necessarily a set base 3-4. Right. Okay. It's not exactly that. So don't get too excited that there's a lot of different ways they're going to run this defense. But that's my thoughts.
Yeah, no, it's going to be a lot of flexibility for sure. But I'm excited about it as well. And you go get guys, again, you're sticking to the theme when it comes to the age of the free agents. The 3 years, Shantelle, you talked about that. That was kind of a theme as well with all the different deals that they agreed on. But these guys could still play. You know, again, free agency, what bugs me the most, and Raider Nation knows this really well, for years on top of years on top of years on top of years, the Raiders have had to super overpay for guys that were at the back end of their careers. Now they're getting guys that are 25. They're getting guys that are 26. They're getting guys that are 27, not 1 year wonders, but guys that have been proven to be able to play. And you're getting you're getting all the Georgia Bulldogs now by way of the Raiders. I'm good with that. Right. And remember, Eric Stokes, he went to Georgia as well. Right. I mean, so you got Stokes.
3 of them.
Yeah, you got Dean, you got Walker. I mean, those guys, you got the Georgia boys back together, and we all know that they can play, right? There's nothing wrong with dipping into a pool of a great, program like Georgia. So we know that they could play. We know that, as you mentioned, Amber, that Robbie Leonard has a plan on how he wants to have this defense run. It stinks to not have Maxx Crosby, but again, if you can get more production from multiple players and not just one, you're in a position to succeed. I think the Raiders did a really good job going out and addressing what they wanted and who they needed to bring in on day one of the legal tampering period. And we'll see how they continue to grow this thing. The biggest key for John Spytek and company is going to be crushing the draft. They have 11 total draft picks right now, 2 in the top 15. So if they go and crush that, they'll have an opportunity to get this thing turned around sooner rather than later. And that's not me saying they're going to go win 10 or 11 games. They're going to go to the playoffs and Super Bowl in year one. I'm not saying that, but you can see the plan in place. You can see that they have an idea of what they want to do and how they want to implement it. And that's a step in the right direction, because I feel like it's been some years where we look up and say, I don't really know what the plan is. I'm just trying to figure it out as they go. And it feels like they're trying to figure it out as they go as well.
Sure.
Yeah. And you know what? Amber mentioned it. I forgot to mention Quay Walker, which is a ridiculous addition as well. That linebacker group hasn't looked this good in a very long time. The Raiders look nasty on day one of legal tampering. And I think John Spytek deserves a lot of credit. A lot of national media is talking about Tom Brady, but I think this has John Spytek written all over it, and he just deserves a lot of credit. Q, you mentioned it. The Raiders are looking good, not to get like too far ahead, because Raider Nation, I think we all get really excited when it comes to the offseason, because the Raiders win the offseason all the time, and then they get on the field and it doesn't look like they won the offseason. But on paper, things look good. And I'm going to say this. If the Raiders go above 500 next season, this upcoming season, I might put a picture of John Spytek on the back of the wall here because it's been a minute.
Put him on the wall of fame.
Yeah, I'm gonna put him on the background here just to give him his props.
I'm not. I'm not. That's gonna be a little weird. I'm not gonna do that.
No, just to give him some props here. You know what I'm saying? I got Kobe and Jordan over here, but I'm just saying, like,
Pac. I'm good. I got Pac. You know what I mean? Like,
hey, I'm too excited. I'm too excited. I think Raider Nation's excited. I also wanted to mention and talk a little bit about Jalen Nailor because I think this was a great addition because he was behind two top receivers in Minnesota. He went to Bishop Gorman, so he's got those Las Vegas ties. And he's a guy, when he was on the field and got burned, he looked really good. There was a stat that PFF put out, and I believe in 49 targets, he only had one drop pass. Like, this is a guy that might be able to excel in a Clint Kubiak system. Amber, I know there has been a lot of talk about bringing in a wide receiver. This was a really good deal, too, because they did not overpay for him. What do you think about a young guy like Jalen Nailor? And do you still think that the Raiders maybe bring in another veteran wide receiver?
To answer your first question, I think it's a nice signing, right? Like, it's a nice signing. It's not going to change the entire offense. I think it gives you an option as far as stretching the field, which they don't exactly have fully right now. So I still very much think they need a number one. I do. Right. So let's not get too far ahead of ourselves to go too crazy with this. But I think it's nice to have that one player that you can stretch the field, kind of let Brock Bowers do what he needs to do underneath. Yep. We know tight ends that succeed in this league, they eat in the middle of the field underneath, and you can't do that without a downfield threat. So that helps. But unless there's like a real number one, then Brock isn't going to be able to do what he needs. So the job's not finished.
Right.
And you have to remember, this is a pretty deep wide receiver draft. I know my guy Makai had a tough combine, Lemon, but I know that kid, by the way, taught him with his professor. Believe in him and think, I don't know what's going on at the combine, but there are some number one receivers in this draft, and that could be an option too. That could be really interesting, especially at the top of the second round. So I don't know about a veteran. Your second question was, do they add a veteran wide receiver? No, I think this was the veteran. I would like to see them draft a young stud high up that could be a number one.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't see a number one out there that's available as far as a veteran. I like Nailor. He's averaging, 15 yards per catch. Yeah. And that goes to Amber's point of, getting the ball down the field or stretching the field and opening up underneath. That's why everybody was talking about Alec Pierce, right? Because he's able to do the same thing, but he ended up staying in Indy for a lot of money. So John Spytek didn't go and break the bank on him and brought in a guy that's a Las Vegas native, Bishop Gorman, as you mentioned, Speedy Nailor. They call him Speedy for a reason. You see what he did at, Bishop Gorman. You saw what he was able to do in college as well. And sometimes you just get sit behind a couple really good wide receivers and you're not able to get the burn that you want to get. I kind of look at this signing similar to the Jakobi Meyers, not exactly the same, but kind of similar to the Jakobi Meyers signing. He's faster than Jakobi, and he's also willing to do the dirty work. He's also willing to be a blocker, which is very important. Everyone in this Clint Kubiak offense has to block. Like, I want to say that if I'm texting you that, I'm doing it in all caps. They have to block. Right?
With the clap symbols in the middle?
Yes, exactly. They have to block, right? I mean, that's the reality of it. And so that's the only way that they're going to be able to eat. And he's one of those guys that's willing to do that. So that to me is a good signing. Again, it's not number one. I think that the number one will probably come from the draft. That could be, Lemon. That could be Branch, two guys, Amber, that you know very well. It could end up being a guy like Omar Cooper. It could be a guy like Elijah Surratt. It could be, there's so many guys in this upcoming draft at the wide receiver position that you can look at and say, yeah, I can see that guy evolving into that number one wide receiver. We know Brock Bowers is the number one target. So they have options. They don't have to force something just for the sake of doing it, right? They could be very happy with what they have, knowing that they're going to go address more positions later on in the upcoming draft.
Yeah, and both of you kind of mentioned that number 14 pick in this year's first round. Makai Lemon is a name that's been floating around. Jordan Tyson from Arizona State is an absolute beast as well. But the reason why the Raiders have that number 14 pick is because they traded away Maxx Crosby. We're going to get to that on the other side. So keep it locked here on the Locked On Network. You're watching or listening to the Raiders Squad Show. And a quick word from our sponsors. It's tax time, but for a lot of us, the old way of doing taxes is a lot. Trying to book an appointment, that's not the most convenient. Sitting in a waiting room with stacked papers, emailing back and forth, and wondering if they really get your situation. But this year, you're getting a major update. And Intuit TurboTax has in-person locations nationwide. You can meet face-to-face with the real tax expert, and your documents get uploaded straight to your TurboTax app on one spot. And just like that, you're done. Your TurboTax expert works to get every dollar you deserve while you get real-time notifications as you go about your day. It's the relief of walking in and meeting a real person and walking out knowing your taxes are being handled right. Head to turbotax.com/local to find a store near you. All right, welcome back, Raider Nation. Remember, if you like the content, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. And also, we just want to mention the Locked On Network, the #1 sports podcasting network. And that's all because of your support. You help continue to help this channel grow and to help the show grow. So whether you make Locked On Raiders your first listen of the day and then the Squad Show your second listen of the day, we do appreciate you. So obviously, it's been a few days, but I mean, the end of last week, the talk was, would Maxx Crosby be traded? And this was going on during the combine, during the entire offseason. Maxx gets traded. The Raiders get 2 first-rounders from the Baltimore Ravens. And this is absolutely huge because I don't think people thought that the Raiders might get 2 first-rounders based off, Maxx coming off a serious injury as well. And also the Dallas Cowboys, I believe, were going to offer 1 first-rounder, but the Ravens came through. So the Raiders have the number 14 overall pick in this year's draft. They also have the number 1 pick. And then in 2027, they have a first-rounder. But I want to actually just focus on Maxx here because not only was he the star player, he was the face of the Raiders for a very long time. He played his heart out. And now there's a position that is needed for the Raiders, not only on the field, but as a face of this franchise. Amber, your thoughts on Maxx Crosby leaving and how this kind of transpired within like the last 3-4 months?
I understand Raider Nation is hurt and heartbroken because he was the heart and soul of this team and he gave everything. And a player like that fits the brand so well too comes around once in a lifetime. And so as sad as I am to see him leave the Raiders, I know Maxx. I actually texted him that night and we were texting back and forth just a little bit. And I told him how happy I was for him because the Raiders, in my opinion, will win in about 3 years. Okay. I think they're going to the mountaintop in about 3 years. He'll be 32 years old at the start of that season. And sometimes in life, things don't match up the way you scripted it. And it didn't for him with the Raiders. I love the Ravens organization. Like I said, they're my second favorite because of the friends I have there. And I know he'll be well taken care of. And this was Eric DaCosta saying, we got a window with Lamar. And it is the John Harbaugh parting was a major move to say, what can we do to get over this hump? And we're going to put everything into Lamar. And part of that is giving him a better defense, right? So they can get the offense back on the field again. And that's where Maxx Crosby came into play. They felt like that defense was a big reason that the Ravens were not getting over the hump. I'm shocked knowing Eric that he gave up 2 first-rounders for, here's the reality, Raider Nation. I'm going to say this. As great as Maxx is, he's going to be 29. He is coming off a couple of surgeries, right? And Father Time is undefeated. Father Time is undefeated. And that is something that John Spytek knew and also Eric DaCosta. And it lined up that they needed Maxx now. The Raiders needed picks and to build a roster for 3 years from now. And so I think this was a win-win for everybody involved. And I want to acknowledge that Raider Nation, our hearts are broken, but it was a win-win. And trust me, this was the smartest move that John Spytek could make for this team, for the Raiders team. And I couldn't be happier for Maxx because I do think the Ravens will be in contention next year. I think the Raiders will have a great year. And then I think we could go to the Super Bowl or, be deep into the playoffs the year or 2 after that. So I think it was just a timeline issue. And
I agree.
All Raider Nation can accept that.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. And, we had talked about it quite a bit on this show where there's smoke, there's fire. And by the end of last week, there was so much smoke. We were getting choked out, right? I mean, we were like hotboxing. There was so much smoke that was going on, right? I mean, it was one of those scenarios where you just kind of knew something was going to happen. I didn't think it was going to be 2-1s, but credit to John Spytek for sticking to his guns and saying that that's what he wanted. That's what he ultimately got. And apparently the Bears were offering that as well, but it wasn't as high as a pick as the Baltimore Ravens. So they decided to go with Baltimore. I think it's a great landing spot for Maxx for every reason that Amber said. When I think of the Ravens, I think of defense. And last year when I watched the Ravens, I didn't see defense. So now Maxx Crosby has an opportunity to do something that I've been critical of and maybe even overcritical of, where I've talked about him not closing out as many games. Well, he hasn't really had as many opportunities to close out that many games with the Raiders because they haven't had too many leads. So
you're exhausted, cute. Like,
right.
You're exhausted.
Yep.
You can't get off the field.
Right.
Like,
exactly.
I don't blame Maxx for that, man.
No, I don't either. I just, I started looking around the league and I started looking at some of these premier guys like a TJ Watt and a Myles Garrett and some of these guys that you're seeing always making these game-changing plays. And I didn't see that many from Maxx. And it's funny, I had to kind of go back and sit back and, analyze it and think about it a little bit more. I was like, well, he really doesn't have that many opportunities to do that. He does do that early in the game and keeps the Raiders in the game, but then the Raiders offense can't capitalize and take advantage of it. So, like I said, sometimes I've been overcritical of what, Maxx has done or hasn't done. And so I think he's going to have an opportunity to show everyone what he could do on a higher level when he has other dudes around him. I mean, he's got dudes on defense. I mean, he's got dudes on every level. Right. I mean, he's got a couple guys on the defensive line. He's got guys in the linebacking room like Roquan Smith. He's got guys in the back end like Kyle Hamilton. Like, that's how you build a defense, is have dudes on all levels. So he's going to have that opportunity. I'm happy for him. I'm even happier for the Raiders because, again, like Amber said, they have an opportunity now, right, to get 2-1s, to have a 14 overall pick, right? They cleared so much of that salary cap space as well. Nobody's under big contract until we find out about the deals yesterday, obviously. But that's a great opportunity for them to build this thing the right way and have guys on every level that could play, as opposed to just one superstar and then nobody else. So yeah, it's rare that you see trades where you're just like, yeah, that's a win-win for everybody. But I think this actually is. I think this is a win-win for everybody. I hope Baltimore wins. Not this year. I hope Baltimore wins after. Like, I hope they're terrible this year.
We have a higher pick. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm hoping that they're not very good this year for one reason or the other. No, but after that, then they can go win all they want after the trade is in the books and the Raiders got their first round pick. I'm good with that. I'm just excited about the opportunity that John Spytek has. I love the way that he's been attacking this offseason, and it feels like he's really comfortable in his own skin being the GM of the Raiders and knowing that he's leading the charge with football operations, with Tom Brady obviously assisting him. But, I think that John Spytek is really kind of in his bag right now, and it's really going to show why there were so many people that were high on him when he got hired as Raiders GM.
Yeah, and for Maxx, I think this is great because now he has a chance to be on a team, hopefully not this upcoming season, as we all have said, because we want that really good draft pick, hopefully in the top 10. But this is a chance for Maxx to also play with some really good players, play with a quarterback like Lamar Jackson, and hopefully have some success. And you never know, because if he's going to be 32 and become a free agent, we never know where the Raiders are going to be at that point, right? The Raiders could be really good where Maxx could come back. And we've seen guys come back like a Charles Woodson, win a Super Bowl with the Packers, come back and get back in that silver and black. So you never know what could happen there. And I think everyone is a little bit hurt. But also at the same time, when all these moves were being made, I was like, man, I wonder if Maxx wishes he wasn't gone, because the defense was looking a little bit different. There is a hole at the edge position now. And my question is, Amber, do they go with defense with that 14th overall pick? I know both you and Q's have said they might go O-line, you could go wide receiver, but now I feel like the linebacker room looks good, but defensive end, that's a position that needs to be addressed. If you're the Raiders, would you also look at some defensive ends? Because I feel like the draft is kind of loaded for that position as well. It's loaded. It's not as loaded high up. Right. So I don't think the 14th position is necessarily Look, I mean, if they think it's their guy, but I think you can get the edge lower down in the second, well, high in the second round, or even the third round. So if you were asking me my plan, I would really focus on offensive line at that 14, or, depending on what's there, a number one receiver, and then kind of start to trickle down into the second and third when it comes to edge, because it's a deep draft. But sometimes deep drafts don't mean there's the generational talent in the top 15. And that's kind of my read on it.
Look, I think that they're in a prime position. I mean, I know that I focus on the offensive line at 14. I think they really have so many different options. It's like being in basketball when you're in a 3-point stance, right? You could do so many different things. I think they could go in so many different directions. Really, I mean, they can go if all of a sudden they look up and at number 14, the best edge rusher in their opinion is there, they could take him. If the best offensive lineman is there, they could take him. If the best wide receiver, they could take him. Like, nobody thought Brock Bowers was going to be available at 13 when the Raiders got him. Like, nobody was talking about Bowers at 13. And then all of a sudden 6 quarterbacks were off the board and look up and, hey, Tom Telesco has an opportunity to go get the best tight end. And so he did. We never know how these things are going to play out. We don't know what kind of trades are going to happen, where certain teams might target a certain player that may be dropping. I think John Spytek sits back and watches the board fall to him, and then he makes his decision on which direction he goes. I think they're in a prime position to be right there in the top 15. Again, my preference on today, March 10th, would be an offensive lineman just to really build that bully up front. But who knows what they're going to do with the rest of free agency still, right? We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know how they feel about Caleb Rogers. We don't know how they feel about Charles Grant. We don't know where JPJ is going to play. Like, there's so many different elements that go into play here. I think that they're in a really good position. So, as much as I'll point out certain players that I look at and focus in there, I really don't think they can go wrong as long as they get a really good football player, because they have 11 total picks right now.
That's crazy.
In the upcoming draft. 11.
And they got 3 in the top 36, right? It's
Exactly.
36.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the draft, we got to back up a little bit, because you can't focus on a position, in my opinion. So the best, if you talk to the best that ever did it, talent evaluators, GMs, it is hard to not draft for position or need, but the best way to build a roster is whoever is sitting there. And if the next name on your board, if they are sitting there, you have to take them, even if you have that position. That is the smartest. Like, if there's a defensive tackle, that is sitting there, like a Kristen Miller or somebody, take them. You got to take them. You can't just say we need an edge, because don't push a second round edge up to number 14 when you got a tackle there.
That's what Spytek said at this combine, right? He said if you draft for need, most times you're gonna pick someone too soon. Yep.
Yeah, you're gonna pick someone too soon. So I think the question isn't like, should they take an edge or should they take a wide receiver? Should they take a lineman? It's who's on your board? Who's the next man on your board? And if he's there, take him.
Right. Exactly. Look, that's what, and you talked about the Baltimore organization. They're one of those that I really respect as far as the front office and the way that they navigate. It seems like they always draft someone, and even in the third round, you're like, of course they were there for Baltimore. Like, they just make really good decisions. But Daniel Jeremiah always tells the story of when they drafted Terrell Suggs. They didn't need an edge at that time. They didn't need a Terrell Suggs. They already had plenty of dudes, and they said, that's the next guy on our board. Like Amber said, they got to their board. All right, this is our guy. We're going to take him. And he ends up winning, Defensive Rookie of the Year that year. And he wasn't even a starter, right? It just happens like that. When Keenan Allen was selected by the Chargers, Tom Telesco tells the story all the time. We didn't need a wide receiver at that position. We didn't need a wide receiver at that time. But he was the best player there. We took him, had a couple of injuries in camp. All of a sudden, he's a starter, and we know what Keenan Allen turned into be. So if you stick to your board, stick to what you scouted, stick to the way. I mean, that's why you put your board together. Right, you didn't put your board together to play Battleship on draft day, right? A13, bing, nope, didn't hit. All right, we'll try it again. B24, boom, that hit. Do it again. You know what I mean? Like, you don't play Battleship in the draft. You have a strategy, you stick to your board, and you get the best player available. And when you have a team like the Raiders, where you're trying to turn things around, where you're trying to stack as much talent as possible, that is the absolute way to get it done.
Yeah, so you guys are saying best player available over positional need, which does make a lot of sense. And obviously there is a hole to fill with Maxx being gone now.
Don't play Battleship, Shantelle. Don't play Battleship.
No, you got to go with the best player available. I do that in fantasy as well.
What that game is.
No, I know what Battleship is, but I'll say this though. I'll say this though, for Maxx Crosby, there's been so much talk about the way that he went about it. The way that he went about this trade. Do you feel like him being quiet and not addressing those trade rumors also help the value of the Raiders getting 2 first rounders, Amber?
Absolutely. I mean, Maxx Crosby does things the right way. And it wasn't just this situation. So yeah, people, I know they're talking about him posting the picture of him playing basketball after the Raiders sat him, and like there was that kind of little bit of a tiff. But Maxx Crosby for 7 years, like I always look at, I look at the body of work for 7 years has established exactly who he is, the kind of person he is, how he handles things. He's not a baby. He handles them with class, stand-up guy. And of course, that's one of the reasons why he's one of the greatest players in the league right now. And of course, that's why Eric DaCosta was willing to give that up for him. It wasn't just these few months of him kind of staying quiet or whatever. It was a body of work and a resume that told us exactly who he is. I think even if he had handled it a little differently over the last couple of months, I don't think there is a lot he could have done to lower his trade value because of the man that he is and what we have seen, and it speaks to who he is. So I'm proud of how he handled it. I think kind of staying quiet. I think the way John Spytek handled it was great. I mean, he knew he had all the leverage in the world by going, nah, I'm good. Nah, I'm good.
Yeah.
Like,
that was the message that Spytek said at the combine, right? Yeah, we're expecting to have, Maxx Crosby. We're expecting to play, or Maxx Crosby, we're anticipating him being on the team in 2026. And then he also threw it out there that we're always listening. So, he let it be known that they weren't just going to give him away. They weren't just going to settle for whatever you offered because he wanted out. And that's where, going back to the way Max handled it, you got to give him credit. And I know that, people get tired of hearing this, that, and the other about Max. I get that. But he could have gone and scrubbed his social media of all the Raiders stuff like all the players do. And he could have gone.
Demanded a trade.
Right. He could have gone on any of his platforms and said, I'm never playing for this team again. I'm never doing that. He could have gone out and said all that stuff. And then every team out there is like, yeah, I don't think Max is coming back. Like, he's pretty set in stone that he's not coming back. So then they could feel like that they could lowball the Raiders. Now, then the Raiders have a tough decision, right? Do you stick with the guy who's a disgruntled player, or do you take the offer? So they could have actually got lowballed. I think the way that he handled it, by not saying anything, by not scrubbing his social media, by not coming out and demanding a trade publicly, this, that, and the third, I think it was fine. And I think it actually assisted the Raiders in a certain capacity to be able to get the 2-1s. Now he goes to Baltimore. The Raiders move on with their draft capital. Everyone's happy, and they got to go handle their business now. And so that's kind of how you make a clean break, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and I think most of Raider Nation wishes Maxx Crosby the best, and it played out really well for everyone that was involved in the trade. But coming up on the other side, we're going to talk about the future of the Raiders and what they're building with the players that they've brought in. They also got awarded a couple of 2 comp picks as well. We'll get into that. So that's on the other side. And in that final segment, Amber and Q are going to be taking some of your questions and comments. So keep it locked here on the Locked On Network. You're watching or listening to the Raider Squad Show. All right, and we'll get a quick word from our sponsors as well. College basketball is nonstop. Big games, tight spreads, momentum swings every single night, from early tip-offs to late-night West Coast shootouts. There's always action on the board. And now FanDuel is giving you a way to turn that energy into even bigger potential wins with a college basketball parlay profit boost. These boosts can be like 30%, 40%. So however much you're putting in, the payout is going to be like 40% more, which is always good. Go safe, go bold, ride with the team you've been following all season. It's your parlay, your style, now with more upside behind it. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel, play your game. All right, we only like the Q solos here if you're watching this on YouTube. But if you like the content, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. You can also follow us on our social media channels. And we just want to say thank you so much for helping the channel and the show grow. Now, obviously, the Raiders have also been awarded 2 comp draft picks for the upcoming 2026 draft. These picks come in and at the 4th round. So they're going to have the pick at 134. And in the second round, the 134 pick is in the second round. And then in round 5, they have the number 175 pick as well. So the Raiders adding more picks as well, which is absolutely huge. And we talked about positional needs, but I actually want to focus on the direction the Raiders are going and the guys that they have brought in. Obviously, they focus a lot on defense with some of the guys they brought in. But when you take a look at the players that John Spytek and Tom Brady have brought in, what are your thoughts on what the Raiders are building and going young, having 3-year deals? Like, this is all kind of the narrative. Amber, when you think about that, what are the Raiders trying to do if you could kind of foresee the future?
I think they're trying to build a whole team. my colleagues, I think it was my colleague James Jones, not Eric, said this, but he was like, there's so many needs. If I was the Raiders, I would focus on one side of the ball this year and the other side of the ball the next year. And I was like, okay, that sounds novel, but I didn't agree with it, right? I think if you can incrementally increase both sides of the ball, you create a situation where you're not a Baltimore, right? Or you're not, we see these teams, are the Bengals, that have an offense that can score 35 points and a defense that gives up 40. You can't have that. So
Right.
I like the kind of measured approach, I would say. I think they're trying to bring in a number of good players instead of a splash because they had when you have so many holes, you can't afford to spend a lot of money in free agency on one position. So I think they're spending really good money in a bunch of positions on really good players. And I love that approach. And I like that they are doing the defense, I think, seems like they're building it somewhat from the front to the back. We're with the linebacker core here, and then I really think the secondary still very much needs to be addressed, and we'll see what happens there. But on the offensive side, we were in a weird position that the start players were in place, right? Like, we're probably going to have Mendoza. You got Brock Bowers. You got Ashton Jennings. Like, most people don't have that.
Right.
Most people do not have that, but we had that. It was like the other places where we needed help, which is the offensive line. And Spytek's like, cool, bet. Like, that's something I can do, right? You can't go out and just get a star tight end. You can't just go out and get a star quarterback or a running back. And so I love that he was like, we got all this. All we got to do is kind of fix this offensive line. So I love the approach. And I think it's measured, and that's, in my experience, better than making splashes, even though the fans love it. It's better than making a splash in free agency.
Yeah, it's a lot of smart decisions, right? It appears to be a lot of smart decisions. Obviously, we don't know how this thing plays out till the season actually gets rolling. But again, it looks like the free agents that they're agreeing to deals with and willing to bring in are guys that have plenty of football still left in them, really good football. They haven't quite hit their peak, right? They're still young, so they're not just going to, like I say, get that check and then all of a sudden check out. That's always something that you're concerned about in free agency. And so to be able to bring in guys that also have familiarity with playing with each other, like Nakobe Dean and Quay Walker, that kind of know what they're all about. Eric Stokes, bringing him back after him having a 1-year deal. I thought that was a nice tip of the cap to him. He proved that he could stay healthy. He played 16 out of 17 games. He didn't take the ball away, but he was a guy that was very solid. There wasn't too many passes that were completed Eric Stokes' way. So I think he earned that contract extension. He earned that confidence from John Spytek, and obviously Robbie Leonard knows him as well. So again, to me, it feels like that they're building this team with a purpose and a plan. And there's been times when you look, and even last year, and as much respect as I have for Pete Carroll, it felt like they were trying to win right now, and they were trying to build for the future at the same time. And it's really hard to have one foot in the water and one foot out. Right. And believe me, I'm not a swimmer, so I've done that. I've been there, trying to do that. Like, yeah, I'm going to get in the pool. Just kidding. You know what I mean? Like, not really. That's how it felt. It felt like they were just like one foot in and the other foot out. And that's not going to work. So now both feet are in the pool of, we're going to get this thing rebuilt in the right way. And these 3-year contracts aren't 5-year deals. They're not 6-year deals. They're not 4-year deals. They're literally 3-year deals, which allows your players that you're drafting to also develop. And it starts to stack the cupboard with talent. Really good teams allow free agents to do what? Usually leave a year early as opposed to leave a year late. When you're starting to stack the cupboard with talent from the draft, that's how you build a team. And then you fill in a few key holes here and there through free agency. They're starting that process where they can allow that to happen. So they're giving themselves a chance. They're going to be able to compete. They look like they've got some young dudes that can go out there and play. And then they're also going to draft some guys that they know, hey, you're going to end up being our long-term solution at this position. You're going to be our long-term solution at this position. And obviously it'll be accented by and complemented by the quarterback position when they go get him.
Yeah. And, it's really interesting because we're talking about positional needs. And one of the biggest news before, the legal day for tampering started was the fact that they released Geno Smith. And this was something that I think we all expected. We didn't expect Geno to be back in silver and black.
Yeah.
However, now we're thinking about who will be QB2, who will be back up to Fernando Mendoza. If the Raiders do draft Mendoza, we all believe that they're going to draft Mendoza here. Are there any veteran quarterbacks available that you feel would be a good fit in this Raiders organization to help a player like Fernando Mendoza become that guy, because John Spytek and Tom Brady have both said that they don't really believe in just throwing out your rookie quarterback out there. So Amber, if there was anyone that you could think of, is there a veteran quarterback that you could see the Raiders bringing in?
I don't even know who's out there. You have to remember, I got hip surgery. Who's still out there, Q? I would.
Well,
I mean, this is date. I got 7 days ago. I got hip surgery.
Yeah.
So
Kirk Cousins is going to get released tomorrow, right?
Yeah, he's released from the Falcons.
So he'll be out there available. Case Keenum, he already re-signed. I thought he was a guy that was an option. He already signed his deal. Kyler Murray, he's not an option, but he's out there. Tua signed a 1-year deal with the Falcons. He wasn't an option anyway. Joe Flacco's out there. There's not a lot of great options. Let's just put it like that.
That's what I thought. Okay, I just want to make sure I didn't miss anybody.
Yeah.
I knew. Okay, I just want to make sure. I mean, look, I don't think they're in a position to sign really a veteran like that, right? I mean, are you going to do it just to go? I mean, or do you just go with Aiden O'Connell and have a backup because you don't need a? Why can't he start? Why can't he start right away?
He can, but Brady's always said that he feels like you have to dumb down the playbook a little bit for a rookie if he starts day one.
All right, so dumb it down. And is Brady the head coach or the GM?
Maybe. Maybe. I don't know, Amber.
I don't know, right? Who's making the decision? I look, we don't know what's happening, but if there's nobody out there that's a veteran that actually makes sense, that's going to come and help.
Right.
Like, you're not just going to throw Joe Flacco out there just to throw Joe Flacco out there. Does that make sense?
Right.
I don't know.
That's a good point. No, that's a good point. That's a good.
I don't know.
I can see Cousins, but I also think that Cousins thinks that he's a longer term solution, not a bridge quarterback.
You don't want to bring in somebody that thinks they're the guy.
Right.
You can't do that. And Kirk Cousins, I think, still thinks he's the man.
I think so too.
And that doesn't make sense. So again, what makes sense? I just saw Joe Flacco at the Pro Bowl. I was there Joe Flacco's rookie year with the Ravens. He looked at me and he said, "You're still here?" And I go, "You're still here?" like that's how long he's been doing it. So yes, is he somebody that's cool like that to come in and can help a guy? I think yes. But do we really want to put him out there like week one when maybe you dumb down the playbook? You don't put all the expectations in the world on Mendoza. It's not like Pete Carroll going, "Hey, we're going to win 10 games."
Right.
It's like, we got your back. We want you to get out there and play. We're going to take it one step at a time. And I think if you approach it like that, you don't have to sit him, because there's been a ton of rookie quarterbacks that come out and start.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
And if they have some setbacks, they have some setbacks, but I think it's the way that the organization approaches it that leads to whether or not they lose their confidence or not. Like, you can't have Urban Meyer come in with Trevor Lawrence and, be like, "Okay, you're going to be the man. There's all these expectations on you, and I'm not going to give you the support, and I'm going to confuse the hell out of you, and I'm going to mess you up." You can't do that. I think this is the perfect coaching group and the perfect organization as far as John Spytek and Tom Brady to walk him through it, take off the pressure, but allow him to start day one.
Yeah, I can see that, especially if they set it up the right way, right? If they have the like I said, the 3 Ps, if the protection is there, which it looks like the protection is going to be there,
right,
and the playmakers are there, obviously the play caller is already there in Clint Kubiak. So as long as you set him up so he could be successful and not just basically make him, throw him in the water and say, "Hey, figure out how to swim on your own." Like, if you give him that chance, and obviously you got a running game that you can lean on in Genty, and I'm assuming another running back's coming in as well. You've got Brock Bowers. I can see them making that move. I think that they're going to want to have options, right? And obviously he's going to have to go out there and prove it during training camp, but that's okay too, right? That's what it's there for. So we'll see how it all plays out. I could definitely see a scenario where Mendoza starts. I could also see a scenario where someone else is starting, not Mendoza, at least for a handful of games.
This is the last top pick that sat. Like, let's think about it. I mean, like, they put Jaden Daniels out there. They put Caden Williams out there. They put Drake May out there.
Drake May didn't play right away. Remember, Drake May didn't start. He didn't start the season. His rookie year he didn't start, but he did 4 games in or whatever.
Yeah. Okay, that's what I'm saying. So what are you gonna do? Joe Flacco go play 3 games?
Right.
That's what I mean. I feel like it's better to have like a plan, just like, this is what we're going to do, rather than let's wing it and maybe we'll throw you in there. I mean, like, Bryce Young went out there, and yes, he had a tough situation, but he's doing good now, right? CJ Stroud went out there and took him to the playoffs his rookie year, I believe. So it's not like it's not being done. And you could argue that some of those situations were not good situations, coaching wise, offensive line wise. They didn't have half the weapons that Mendoza has. So I say put him out there, man. Like, you don't get better. I don't think you get better sitting on the bench. And the days of Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers are over. It's just not the NFL anymore. I think you can walk them through with the right mindset.
No, that's true. It's you have to play right away because these coaches aren't guaranteed that they're going to be there very long, right? I mean, look how many coaches have been fired quarterback's rookie year. And see, that's why I think that the Raiders made really good decisions when they decided to move on from Pete Carroll and bring in Clint Kubiak, because they knew that they were going to marry him with the quarterback. And so they weren't going to have a scenario where 4 or 5 games into the season, they're like, all right, Brian Daboll, you're out of here. All right, Matt Eberflus, you're out of here. All right, insert quarterback or the head coach in Tennessee, Brian Callahan, you're out of here, right? I mean, it's not that scenario. At least they're giving him a playbook. They know he's going to be the head coach for years to come. They know that Mendoza will be the quarterback. So I can see that scenario playing out. I mean, look, you ain't got to convince me to start him. I would love to see him week 1. I just know what I've heard from Brady, and I know what Spytek said at the combine. Again, that's just what he said.
They say a lot of things they don't do too.
True.
That's true.
Right?
I mean, that's very true.
I you don't see this very often, and I would love to see the Raiders do this. Be like, we believe we have all the pieces. This is what our offense is going to look like for years to come. Mm-hmm. And we want to start them right out the gate together. And we're cool if he makes mistakes. We're cool if he gets rocked. We're cool if he loses his confidence. We're with him. We're ride or die no matter what. How many organizations do that? They don't.
Right.
They don't. They don't come out and say, like, we're willing to spend a year of some learning because he's going to be better for it. We're not going to abandon him after this year. When I was a young broadcaster, I got put on shows maybe I didn't belong on. And I got embarrassed, right? I got embarrassed. I didn't belong there. I wasn't ready. I had the wrong people. And you know what? I was still standing at the end. And I went back the next year and I was better. I was 10 million times better for it. So sometimes getting thrown into the fire is not a bad thing. And I think if Fernando Mendoza is the makeup that you think he is, then you rock with him. And you assume he's not going to lose his confidence because a couple of games that are going to be rough. But we're just going to tell him you're better for it, man. Don't worry about it. You're better for it.
Yeah, and he's a rookie, so he's going to have bad games. And so I think that's the thing that you have to be okay with, especially if you're putting your young quarterback out there. But coming up on the other side, Amber, Q, they're going to be taking some of your questions and comments. Keep it locked here on the Locked On Network. You're watching or listening to the Raider Squad Show. All right, a quick break, Raider Nation. If you like the content, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. It's time for questions with Q and Amber. We'll get to this one. Pastor James Williams, 3463. Do the Raiders need to let Dylan Parham go? Either of you can take this.
Yeah, I think so. I think Parham, I mean, he's a free agent, so I think that he'll end up going somewhere. I don't see him as a long-term solution for the Raiders because he's injured quite a bit, right? He's banged up a lot. We see him in training camp, not finishing practices. So I just don't think that – I think the Dylan Parham run with the Raiders is over.
I agree. Not much more to add to it. I think if he had his chance to kind of stand out and he didn't, and they're building a new line, and let's go in a different direction.
All right, let's get to Dave S. 2026 sneaky free agent wide receiver, maybe Keenan Allen on a short-term deal. Would you bring in a vet like Keenan Allen?
I mean, he was for Justin Herbert on third down and like 7. He was the go-to guy for him last year, but he didn't really provide a whole lot after that. I think I'd pass on Keenan Allen.
Yeah, like what makes sense, right? If you're going young, building guys on 3-year deals, a 1-year, 30-something-year-old receiver doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I like how y'all were both really respectful though when you were doing that, right? Like, okay, the space beast. So there's been so many like trades that are being thrown out online. There was one for Jalen Carter. They were like, should the Raiders give up their first round pick for Jalen Carter, who's already one of the best defensive tackles in the league? Amber, would you do that? Q, would you do that? Would you give up a pick for a guy like Jalen Carter, or does like the off-field issues and stuff kind of bother you?
I don't know. That's a sensitive subject when it comes to Jalen Carter, only because of what's happened here in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
And I want to be real respectful to Tina Tintor, her family, and everything that happened with her. It's a tough pill to swallow. We know when Jalen Carter was coming out in the draft how great of a player he was. Would have loved to see the Raiders draft him. I know that they liked him a lot at that time, but they just couldn't. They didn't have the stones to be able to draft him then. I know that there was rumors that he could have been involved in the Maxx Crosby trade. I just don't know, man. And like I said, I want to be real respectful. You know, as we see, I don't know. Let's just leave it like that. I just want to be respectful. I don't think so.
And I stand with you on that, Q. I think the Las Vegas organization was in a position there where, I mean, look, flat out say it. Would you rather have Jalen Carter as a player than Tyree Wilson? Yes. They took Tyree at 7 and Jalen went at 8. And that's a tough one from a football standpoint. When you consider what was happening in Las Vegas and the loss that the community went through at that time, it made sense. And so I don't know if it makes sense now, especially give up a first round when, you know, he's a couple years into the league. And why not use that first rounder to draft somebody just as amazing?
Yeah, go with young talent in the draft. Raider Nation, thanks so much for rocking out with us this morning. We'll be back on Thursday. And of course, remember to hit that like and subscribe button. We hope you enjoyed the content. And obviously, we'll see what happens the next few days because free agency becomes official on Wednesday, 1 p.m. Eastern time. And so far, the Raiders get an A, I think, all around for the moves that they make. But we'll be back on Thursday. So make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, and we'll see you then.